I know the focus was on the federal piece, but I can tell you, we had a forum in Kingston on healthcare and the discussion of the impacts. And the item that was identified about the cut in doctors, New York is already paying $300 million for the new program. We're expected to pay more this year. When those cuts come to doctors, you can bet that if the federal government is not reimbursing, the pressure will be on taxpayers in New York State to cover those gaps. Almost $1 trillion, excuse me. Half of it is presumed cost cuts, their cost shifts, many of them, and the other half of $1 trillion, new taxes. So that's effectively the equation that we're looking at. And the question is, how do we pay for it? And that is the bottom line. We want affordability, we want access. If you're in a rural area, those are critical, but there have to be other models that work that are more cost efficient, rather than just throwing dollars at the problem.
Mainly for the two federal people, other than the health care bill, which is horrendous, being passed in Congress, there was another bill that was passed. It was the cap and trade with all the carbon taxes and that. What, if anything, is your opinion on that? And if you don't agree with that, why don't you agree with it? And I think it was passed under the leadership of Nancy Pelosi with the help of Mr. Murphy. You can correct me if I'm wrong. I think he voted for that.
Well, thanks very much for the question. It passed the House. It did not pass the Senate. The Senate Democrats have walked away from that idea. Thank God for that. So you're right. It passed, and it passed with the help of our representative here, which I cannot understand. That bill, the cap and trade, essentially, the provision of the energy bill that covered cap and trade basically stipulated that we were going to set the 2005 emissions and anything above that. And then, by the way, over time, it was going to step it. It was going to be stepping these emission levels back. What it said is anything over those emission levels, you're going to have to pay a tax or fine, or you're going to have to go on the open market and trade for somebody else who maybe come under that, and then you can get some of that. Here's the problem with it, is that when you look at farmers and manufacturers, their demand for energy is inelastic. The idea of the taxes will discourage use of fossil fuels. They'll move to alternative energies. But if you're a farmer, what are you going to do? You're either going to farm or you're not. And so much of farming activity requires the fossil fuels. There's no transition in cap and trade. I am opposed to cap and trade. We're not going to climb up on the back of our farmers and our manufacturers. We're not going to do that. Now, how can we work emissions? And how can we work energy? I will tell you that I am an advocate of certainly in all of the above energy policy, but I think we have tremendous opportunities in hydroelectricity and nuclear. I will tell you that when I first retired, about end of February, was that 6, 7 months ago, I was open to, but is somewhat concerned about nuclear energy. But I have been studying it. And I want to tell you that what I have learned is I trust it. And I'm asking you to trust me, that I've looked into it. And I was in 9th grade when 3 Mile Island occurred, so it's not far from my collective conscience. But I think it's the way of the future. One plant can service 300,000 households. And here's the other thing. In a time when New York State residents are dealing with property taxes that are going through the roof, we could get relief with these plants. The places that have the nuclear plant have significant reductions in their property tax. And we can get good, clean energy. So, certainly I'm asking you to follow me on this, because I believe in it. I really believe in it. And we can talk about it if you want. The other thing is hydroelectricity. Hydroelectricity, we create more hydroelectricity than any other state east of the Rockies. But we've got more potential. We can get more out of hydroelectricity. And when we increase our capacity in those two areas, while using the other renewables where it's profitable, the last thing we want to do is do what we did with ethanol. Create something that ends up not being profitable, then we all end up paying for it. And we're kidding ourselves. And we're driving up the cost of food anyways with the ethanol. Don't do that. I don't think we should do that with renewables. But you know what? Where wind makes sense, like up in near Gore Mountain, let's do it. Where there's already a transmission line. Where solar makes sense, we can make profit on it, let's do that. Biomass, yes. But don't force it. And let's also recognize the fact that it's not a panacea. Some will tell you renewables. At our very best, we can maybe get 10% of what we need. Let's recognize we have needs that go beyond that. Let's not kid ourselves on that. That's why I'm asking you to trust me on the nuclear power. I think it's the way for our future in New York 20. Thank you for the opportunity.